Transformers Revenge of the Fallen was a commercial success for the Transformers franchise. Though it wasn't as strong as the first Transformers movie, Revenge of the Fallen managed to out-earn its predecessor, becoming the fourth highest grossing film of 2009. Now, when Transformers Revenge of the Fallen was in production, several children's books, novels, comics, and video games were created to coincide with the film's release. However, something strange that fans of the movie quickly started to notice is that the ending in all of these adaptations were vastly different from the one that we got in the film, leaving fans to wonder why there was such a discrepancy. And a lot of fans, including myself, preferred this original ending over the one we got, since it ended up fixing a lot of major plot holes that were present in the film, in addition to giving us a lot more robot screen time, which is something that is criminally absent from the ending that we got. So without further ado, let's dive into what could have been, and I'll let you guys be the judge if this original ending was better than the one we got.
I rise, you fall.
Alright, so for those of you who might be a little fuzzy on how Revenge of the Fallen ended, here's a quick recap. After Sam is able to revive Optimus Prime with the Matrix of Leadership, the Fallen teleports in to take it away, and activates the Star Harvester. The soldiers and armored vehicles begin firing on the pyramid, but the Fallen raises the heavy weaponry up with his telekinesis powers and destroys it all. A dying Jetfire offers his parts to Optimus Prime, and then rips out his own spark. Ratchet and Jolt then proceed to fuse Jetfire's remains with Optimus Prime, making him extremely powerful with flight capabilities. Optimus Prime is then able to destroy the Harvester, and then faces the Fallen and Megatron. After a short but fierce battle, Optimus defeats Megatron and brutally kills the Fallen. Horrified at the demise of his master, the severely injured Megatron follows Starscream's suggestion about retreating, but vows that the war isn't over. With the battle won, the Autobots, Ness, Sam, and his friends return to the USA. Optimus Prime sends a message into space, detailing recent events so the shared past of humanity and the Autobots will not be forgotten as it once was. After this, we get a post-credit scene of Sam and Mikaela, and another post-credit scene of Sam being back at college. However, when it came to the tie-in media made for Revenge of the Fallen, their endings diverged significantly from the film. They all shared a common sequence of events, but each had its distinct variations when it came to how the story ended. However, the version that is by far the most accurate to what we would have gotten is the ending that is portrayed in the Revenge of the Fallen novel written by Alan Dean Foster. This is because Foster used the actual screenplay that was created for the film in order to write his book. And the differences with the ending start right as Optimus Prime is revived. You see, after Sam plunges the Matrix into Optimus's chest, he takes it out when Optimus wakes up. After climbing down, Optimus stood up and looked at Sam, saying, "I knew there was greatness in you, Sam." I'm sorry? I didn't listen," Sam replied. "Ah, but you did," Prime said. Before the conversation could go on, the Fallen teleported right in front of them, knocking everybody off their feet. Ironhide and Sideswipe charged at the Fallen, firing all their weapons at him, but it was no use since the Fallen raised his hand and swept the two Autobots backwards. Optimus tried to intervene, but before he could fully get up on his feet, the Fallen raised his hand again, knocking Prime down. The Fallen then shifted his gaze towards Sam. He would tell him, "Now at last I claim the energy of your son," and extended a finger, using his telekinesis to snatch the Matrix out of the boy's hands. With his prize finally secured, the Fallen teleported back to the Star Harvester. Sam would then yell, somebody stop him, he's gonna turn on that machine." Optimus, who was still on the ground, would say, "Autobots, stop him." Then Jetfire came to Optimus, telling him, "Optimus, you are the last of the Primes. You possess power beyond your own imagining. Take my components. Fulfill your destiny. You don't need wheels or feet. You need wings." Jetfire then looked up into the sky, saying, "Never done a damn thing worth doing with my life till now." The old bot then proceeded to rip out his own spark. Optimus then got up on his feet, saying, "Sacrifice should not be wasted. We have no time to mourn or to praise. He then nodded at Ratchet and the Docbot worked his magic, assembling the Seeker's body into a jetpack for Optimus. Ratchet would then step back. While he was complimenting his own handiwork, Ironhide would lean in saying, "I think you missed a spot right below." Before he could finish, Optimus activated Jetfire's engines and soared into the air. The novel then cuts to Seymour Simmons as he's climbing up the pyramid, while at the same time trying to stay out of Devastator's sight, who was in the process of digging out the Star Harvester. He then talked into his radio saying, "Hang on boys, gonna have a heart attack here." The novel then shifts over to Leo Spitz, who was behind the downed Jordanian helicopter. He would watch Simmons climb up the pyramid and say to himself, "Whoa, he is the Robo-Warrior." The novel then shifts over to the American and Jordanian forces that were closing in on the Star Harvester. As they fired at Megatron and the Fallen became annoyed, shifting his gaze from Devastator's work to the insects shooting at him. He then would bring both of his arms up, sending the American and Jordanian forces into the air. After examining their primitive war machines, he would then flick both of his hands, sending everything down the sides of the pyramid. Simmons would duck behind one of the massive pyramid stones as cover as a collapsing tank bounced over his head. Choosing an opening, Simmons rose up and rushed behind Devastator. He then whispered into his radio saying, "Prepare to target your weapon! I'm directly below the enemy scrotum!" He then gave a set of coordinates and then said, "And gentlemen, if you miss by so much as 1 meter, you tell my biographer I was proud to serve." The novel then focuses back on the Fallen, and seeing that Megatron and Starscream were dealing with the remaining human forces, he inserted the Matrix into the Star Harvester. Standing nearby, Devastator looked on proudly until his attention was drawn to a strange object flying in his direction. That object was of course Optimus Prime. Devastator raised his fist and readied himself to deal with Prime. The novel then cuts to the Gulf where a United States Navy destroyer carrying a railgun would fire a blast at the coordinates it was given by Simmons. The projectile would hit Devastator in the chest before Optimus could reach the pyramid. Devastator's body shattered, causing what remained of him to tumble down the pyramid. Simmons sought cover as a part of Devastator's arm nearly hit him. As he got back to his feet, a slow grin started to spread across his face. With the Devastator now destroyed, Optimus ever so slightly altered his approach. As the Star Harvester powered up, the Matrix started to glow so bright that the Fallen couldn't even look at it. And then a portal above the Harvester opened up, and an intense beam of white light shot out of the Harvester and into the sky. Even though it was traveling at light speed, it would take 8.5 minutes to reach the sun, which was more than enough time for Optimus. With his arms fully extended side by side to form a finger-tipped ram, the Autobot leader smashed through the upper portion of the Harvester, causing it to collapse in on itself. The beam flickered briefly. Each fading flicker was powerful enough to burn holes in the 3 Decepticons that were standing on top of the pyramid. Wounded and melting in several spots, Megatron and Starscream wailed in agony, while the Fallen, who was injured from the collapsing of the Harvester, shot at Optimus and yelled, "You dare challenge me? I am a Prime." Optimus blocked the blast and said, "You abandoned that name when you slaughtered your brothers. There's only one Prime now, and my ancestry will be avenged." Optimus then charged in, wielding broken gliders from the Star Harvester like clubs in a blur of motion that no one could withstand. Megatron, recognizing that the tide had turned, looked at the Fallen and said, "You promised, Master. You promised me the power of a Prime." Before the Fallen could respond, Optimus would say, "Primes are born, not made, Megatron. You were betrayed." Sensing defeat, the Fallen knew he had to get out of there in order to flee the onslaught of his enemy, but more so to escape the blinding light of the Matrix. And so he opened a portal to escape. But escape wouldn't be so easy on this day, since Optimus ripped off the top of the Star Harvester and flew towards the Fallen. The Fallen didn't see him until the last instant. "Megatron, help me!" he cried, but Megatron was unmoved. His former master had lost what power he held over him. Knowing that there would be other days to fight, other means to destroy the Autobots, he turned his back on the Fallen and led Starscream into the Fallen's portal. Left behind, the Fallen faced the vengeance of the last Prime alone. Powered by Jetfire's engines and driven forward with all the strength in his rejuvenated body, Optimus drove the tip of the Harvester into the Fallen's head. The Fallen collapsed, and his body fell down the pyramid. With a sizzle and a sonic boom, the portal above the Harvester closed and the sky behind it was once again blue. Landing near the base of the Harvester, Optimus examined the still pulsing matrix carefully. Satisfied with his assessment, he reached out and slowly removed it from the Harvester. With the ruined town in front of them and the sea behind, soldiers and Autobots waited anxiously, their attention concentrated on the distant rocks. But when a single shape rose from the summit and came towards them, everyone embraced each other, wavering slightly but still standing on his own 2 feet. Sam allowed himself to close his eyes. They opened when the warm words filled his right ear. "Took all this to tell me you love me?" Michaela whispered. "You said it first," Sam replied. When the two finally separated, they saw some familiar figures coming towards them. An utterly drained but triumphant Seymour Simmons being carried in the arms of Mudflap, beside him being pulled along on a piece of Devastator like a kid on a sled, a beaming Leo Spitz. And running towards them, their faces shining, Sam's mother and father, whose second honeymoon had not turned out exactly as planned. Returning planes crowded the deck of the USS Roosevelt. Mechanics ministered to them while medical personnel moved along the Marines who had been brought aboard for treatment. Under Ratchet's supervision, human technicians worked to repair the damage that had been done to a number of Autobots. Sam and Optimus stood alone on the bow, gazing out across the desert sea. "The symbols in my head, they're gone," Sam said. "Not gone. Absorbed within the substance of the Matrix," Optimus said as he shooed away a goal that attempted to perch on his shoulder. Dropping his gaze, Prime looked at the precious and dangerous relic of a distant past that was now attached to his hip. "Peaceful," Prime said. "Hope it lasts," Sam replied as he grinned to himself. "I've got a lot of classwork to make up." "Hope, as you have proven, Sam, is all that's required." The leader of the Autobots paused for just an instant. "Thank you for saving my life." Tilting back his head, Sam peered up at his massive friend. "Thanks for believing in me." They stood quietly like that for some time before he spoke again. "The Primes, if they weren't a dream or a hallucination, said I didn't know the truth about my future. Do you?" Optimus considered. "I know one thing. Our planets, our races, united by a history long forgotten, yet to be discovered." Tilting back his head, he peered up at the sky, and through it to the stars beyond. After this, the novel moves on to the epilogue, where we see a war-torn Megatron making his way through the decks of the Nemesis, a place that was perfectly suited for his needs, since it would provide sanctuary while he restored himself to his former glory. It would take time, but this second defeat only fueled more determination in Megatron. Here he would heal and gather all the remaining Decepticon forces. But there was also something else. The Nemesis had a treasure trove that Megatron could tap. A resource that would ensure his victory over the Autobots and their allies, that being the hundreds of protoforms that were in stasis. With a vision of the devastation to come, Megatron commanded his newfound army to arise. And just like that, that's how Revenge of the Fallen was supposed to end. And compared to the ending we got, I believe that this ending was a lot better, since for one it explained why Sam no longer saw the Cybertronian symbols in his head, in addition to how Optimus was able to retrieve the Matrix of leadership. Another thing that this ending does better is how it used the railgun. As we know in the film, it's only used once, despite there being more than enough time for Simmons to call in another strike. A strike that could have potentially destroyed the Harvester. However, in the original ending, Simmons is physically unable to call in another strike, since Optimus is already on top of the pyramid, and he wouldn't want to risk accidentally hitting him. Another thing that makes me like this ending more is that it sets the stakes higher, by actually showing the Star Harvester activate, unlike in the film where Prime is able to destroy it before it turns on. However, the main thing that I like about this ending more is that there were more robot scenes, such as the one where Ironhide and Sideswipe attempt to take on the Fallen, the one where Devastator prepares himself to take on Prime, Ratchet overseeing the humans repairing the Autobots, Mudflap carrying Seymour Simmons, and potentially Skids being the one to pull Leo around using a piece of Devastator. And I say potentially since the novel for some reason does not not specify who is pulling Leo. In the film, we unfortunately don't get to see any of this, and Optimus is the only Transformer that we get to see after Megatron and Starscream leave the area. Lastly, we would have gotten this epic post-credit scene of Megatron preparing an army, which was 10 times better than the 2 post-credit scenes of Sam Witwicky. So yeah, clearly we were robbed of something that would have been 10 times better to see. So now the question is, if this was all written into the script, then why the heck did the filmmakers change it all, resulting in the ending that we got? And well, the answer is pretty fascinating. You see, thanks to the director's commentary, director Michael Bay gives us an explanation as to why the ending of the film turned out the way it did.
Ultimately in the movie, this was the area that got, I think, shafted the most. And I think it comes down to sheer time that we had to finish the movie. At this point in the movie, we were closing in on it fast, and I know ILM bit off more than they can chew, and there was some panic going on. This fight wasn't everything that I would have wanted. I would have wanted to make it more brutal, more emotional, but you couldn't make it go on too long, and it's just didn't have enough time to block it out. So I apologize to the fans for that.
So yeah, due to the production team running out of time to fully bring the script's original ending to life, and ILM already biting off way too much than they could chew, Bay and the team had to come up with this ending instead. As for why they ran out of time, the 2009 writer's strike is definitely the culprit, since it caused a lot of things behind the scenes to go absolutely haywire for Revenge of the Fallen's production, and I plan to cover how bad it got in a future video. Now, the last thing I want to touch upon is the several slightly different versions of the original ending. In the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen movie adaptation comic, Optimus is depicted blowing up the Star Harvester instead of crashing through it. After he tells Megatron that primes are born and not made, he proceeds to cut off Megatron's left arm and right leg. When the Fallen tries to escape, Optimus uses some sort of cable weapon to keep him in place before killing him. And lastly, some of the dialogue is slightly altered, and some dialogue is completely brand new, most notably Megatron telling off the Fallen before he leaves him for dead. In the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen video game for the Xbox 360, PS3, and PC, the Autobot campaign ends with you playing as Jet Power Optimus Prime against the Fallen. He kills the Fallen by stabbing him through the head. Then the Fallen falls into the Star Harvester, destroying it. Ratchet shortly after tells Optimus that Megatron is on a ship in a distant galaxy, and Optimus then salutes his troops for their good work in stopping the Decepticons. The Decepticon campaign is similar. You play as Megatron, and after defeating Bumblebee and Jetfire, Megatron goes to meet the Fallen at the Harvester. However, Optimus, who survived his battle with Megatron, reveals that the Fallen has no way to make Megatron a Prime, as Primes are born and not made. Megatron then attacks and destroys his former master, but Optimus is able to deactivate the Harvester before it can destroy the Sun. With his initial plan ruined, Megatron returns to the Nemesis and activates the Decepticon protoforms inside the ship, commanding his new army to arise. The Transformers Revenge of the Fallen video game for the PlayStation Portable ends roughly in the same exact way. However, instead of stabbing the Fallen, he is gunned down, and the Harvester never activates in both of the campaigns. Also, in the Autobot campaign, Ratchet never mentions Megatron being on a ship in a distant galaxy. In the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen video game for the Wii and PS2, after defeating Megatron, Optimus confronts the Fallen at the Star Harvester, and after the two battle it out, Optimus grabs the Fallen and carries him into the portal that the Star Harvester made, presumably killing him off screen. We then get to see the Autobots rebuilding the pyramid, and Optimus gives a speech. After this, it cuts to Megatron and Starscream on the other end of the portal that they teleported through before Prime defeated the Fallen. Megatron relays to Starscream that the Fallen's base has an army that they could use to defeat the Autobots once and for all. In the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen video game for the DS, the Autobot campaign ends with the recruit heading to Egypt alongside the other Autobots to stop the Decepticons. Optimus and the Fallen have a showdown. Megatron slips away to activate the Harvester, but is followed by the Recruit, who tracks Megatron through a sandpit. There, the Recruit proves his skills and bravery by defeating Megatron. In the Decepticon campaign, the Decepticons travel to Egypt to recover the Matrix of Leadership so they can activate the Star Harvester. The Recruit recovers the Matrix and takes it to the Fallen, who is pleased with his efforts. He then goes on to destroy Optimus Prime. This feat catches the Fallen's eye, and he proclaims the Recruit as his new right hand, thus removing Megatron from the position. Megatron and Starscream both express their contempt for the Recruit before the game ends. In the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Jr. novel, when the Star Harvester fires off its beam, Optimus is able to block it, sending it raining back down on the Decepticons. The Fallen attempts to use his supernatural abilities to destroy Optimus, only to find that as a Prime, Optimus is immune to his powers. Megatron and Starscream flee as Optimus rips apart the Star Harvester, and uses the pieces from it to bludgeon the Fallen. After retrieving the Matrix, Optimus uses it to open a wormhole to a place where no one will hear from the Fallen ever again, and flings his foe into it. A similar type of ending would be present in the I Can Read I Am Optimus Prime storybook. In the Last Prime storybook, which is an abridged retelling of the Revenge of the Fallen film, when the Star Harvester fires off its beam, Optimus Prime intercepts it, reflecting the beam back down, burning Megatron, Starscream, and the Fallen. Optimus then takes on both Megatron and the Fallen at once, easily beating both. The Fallen tries to escape through a wormhole, but Optimus uses cable weapons to keep him in place, before killing him with a piece of the Star Harvester. Megatron manages to escape through the wormhole that the Fallen created, and the remaining Decepticons disperse. Now, last but not least, the version that by far has the most changes would be the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Scholastic storybook. Instead of the Fallen being the one to take the Matrix back, Megatron is the one to do it. Jetfire shortly after gives Optimus his parts by touching Optimus's head. As Jetfire's body goes limp from the power transfer, his body parts start attaching themselves to Optimus on their own, and instead of flying to the pyramid, Optimus teleports to it. He defeats Megatron by picking him up and throwing him through a wall. Starscream then flies towards Optimus. However, Optimus deals with him by turning quickly and using his feet to push Starscream to the ground. As for the Fallen, he is killed when Optimus pushes an unspecified long metal bar through his body. And for some strange reason, the Star Harvester is not said to be destroyed in this version. So yeah, that's all the versions of the original ending. As you guys can clearly see, they all follow the same general premise, albeit with some distinct differences depending on the version. As for the reason behind these variations, in the context of the books and novels, it's highly likely that they stem from the utilization of different drafts of Revenge of the Fallen script, given that a script is subject to continuous changes, and since the books were made at different times, the writers of these books likely had different script versions to work with, thus explaining why the overall premise in all of them is the same, but the details are different. As for the games, I believe that the script version also played a role. However, I think the main deviations in their content were due to the developers wanting to make the games more exciting. For example, in all of these endings, we get to see Devastator be taken out by the US military. This would mean that if the developers strictly followed the script, players wouldn't have the chance to battle Devastator. However, since that would be a huge missed opportunity, they changed the storyline to allow that to happen. So yeah, that was basically the original ending to Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Do you believe that it was better, or do you think that the ending we got was stronger? Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below.